YUJI'S domain expansion has been revealed. The development of YUJI'S character as a shaman, it is increasingly clear that he has great potential. From the mystery of his birth, which turned out to be related to Sukuna, YUJI is believed to have the potential equivalent of the King of Curses, ryomen Sukuna. Besides being able to use blood manipulation techniques, YUJI has mastered Sukuna's techniques. With a better version, he combined it with his expertise in reading souls. As a result, YUJI was able to draw the soul boundary between Sukuna and Megumi with his dismantle. So if Sukuna has a world-splitting dismantle, YUJI has a soul-splitting dismantle. Oh yeah, welcome to the club. Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 264 are here. Before we start the story, I ask you to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. So, the chapter began with Hana and the angel appearing above Sukuna. With a boogie-woogie, Todo managed to send Joker to the center of the match, because at that moment, Hana again used Jacob's ladder to attack Sukuna. But with very fast decision-making, Sukuna immediately fought back, before the Jacob's ladder light paralyzed him. Sukuna destroyed the ground that became a foothold. As a result, the stone ruins flew up. By stepping on a large floating stone, Sukuna quickly jumped from stone to stone until he got to the top and intended to attack the angel. Because according to Sukuna, he was sure that at this time YUJI and Todo would not be able to approach him. So, the Jacob's ladder released by the angel this time was different from the one released by Yuta before. In Yuta's domain, the attack only targeted Sukuna, and because of that, it made the radius smaller. While in this case, Jacob's ladder attacked the entire area around Sukuna, possibly to minimize Sukuna's chances of escape. Therefore, the area created was so large. But this makes YUJI and Todo also subject to attacks from angels. So normally, the two shamans would stay away from Sukuna. Seeing Sukuna come forward to attack, the angel told Hana to immediately keep her distance. But with Sukuna's physical strength, he had first appeared behind Hana. Preparing to land a blow, Sukuna began to check the angel's weakness for choosing to coexist with his vessel. So as a shaman, the angel can only rely on Hana's relatively weak physique. Especially after losing her right hand, the output of the curse technique became weaker than before. And this is why Sukuna is still able to move when his body continues to be exposed to the light of Jacob's ladder. Even so, the attack was not ineffective. Sukuna was still faced with the risk that his soul would be separated from Megumi's body. This is why Sukuna intends to kill the angel before that time comes. But just as Sukuna landed his punch to trigger a black flash, someone had come to protect Hana, and he was Todo. Even without his technique, Todo managed to arrive in time by jumping through the surrounding buildings. So at that moment, he could only withstand Sukuna's punch with only his physical strength. Sukuna was amazed by Todo's actions and recognized that he was a true sorcerer. But it didn't take long. Sukuna's punch was able to make Todo and Hana bounce so far that it destroyed the building behind him. As a result, they lay as if they lost consciousness. Seeing Todo willing to come forward to attack him, Sukuna became immediately wary of YUJI. So before actually killing Hana, Sukuna intends to finish off YUJI first. But when Sukuna looked down, YUJI suddenly appeared behind him. Using Sukuna's debris, YUJI came up and intended to send an attack. So YUJI was willing to let his body be hit by the Jacob's ladder in order to attack Sukuna. And now it was time for YUJI to show his light. As Sukuna was surprised by his presence, YUJI managed to unleash a powerful punch on Sukuna's face. Not enough there, while diving down, YUJI grabbed both of Sukuna's legs and slammed his body hard into the building. And after that, made the building become destroyed and badly damaged. And as soon as he saw Sukuna was able to get back up, YUJI immediately sent his follow-up attack. With the cleave technique, YUJI destroyed the floor that Sukuna was standing on. But that's where Sukuna managed to surprise YUJI. From Sukuna's severed hand, a punch from an unexpected direction appeared and landed on YUJI's face. Because after landing two black flashes, Sukuna could now use his reverse curse technique again. So at this moment, both pairs of Sukuna's hands had recovered. With his forehands, Sukuna managed to push YUJI back. From blocking his punches to sending multiple fists, Sukuna showed his superiority in hand-to-hand combat. But YUJI didn't give up. Now he tried to unleash the soul-splitting dismantle on Sukuna. But realizing the danger of the technique, Sukuna decided to be more cautious. Sukuna felt that he didn't need to take risks like when fighting with Gojo. As long as he can avoid the soul-splitting dismantle, Sukuna believes that Yuji is not a threat. So now Sukuna only needed to wait for the cooldown time of his technique to run out. And after that, he could finish off Yuji. But just as Sukuna was confident that he could continue to avoid Yuji's attacks, a phenomenon that surprised him occurred. But before that, we were shown a flashback when Yuji saw the Gojo domain for the first time. At that time, Yuji was given an explanation of the greatness of an expanding domain. So even though it takes a lot of curse energy, the benefits gained by the technique are deadly. In addition to providing a territorial advantage like a buff in a game, domain expansion also makes sure the user's technical attacks hit their target. And that second feature is very much needed by Yuji at this time. So this is where we are also shown the phenomenon that surprised Sukuna, Ryoiki Tenkai. In front of the king of curses, Yuji used his domain expansion. So after exchanging bodies with Kusakabe, Yuji has learned about the basic barrier technique. Even before, we had seen Yuji use the simple domain. So after awakening his curse technique, coupled with Yuji's knowledge of the barrier technique, he is now able to use his domain expansion. But the surprises don't stop there. As soon as Yuji activated the expansion of his domain, Yuji and Sukuna suddenly moved to a place that seemed to be a train station. At that moment, Sukuna looked shocked at the scene he saw, while Yuji suddenly called Sukuna and said, "Come on," as if inviting him to a place. So what exactly is Yuji's domain and what happens at the end of this chapter? And that's the full story of JJK Chapter 264. In this chapter, we are again shown Yuji's rapid development as a shaman. After previously he was able to innovate and create a soul-splitting dismantle, Yuji was also able to use high-level domain expansion techniques. So in this episode, the main topic will be Yuji's domain expansion and the scene shown at the end of this chapter. Simply put, domain expansion is a technique where the sorcerer expands the field coming from the embodiment of their technique and attaches it to a barrier. That way, he can send attacks from his technique without being evaded. So in order to realize that, it requires an innate curse technique as well as an understanding of the barrier technique. And so far, Yuji had gotten those two keys. After exchanging bodies with Kusakabe, Yuji had learned the basic barrier technique. As a person known as an expert on barrier techniques, it's no surprise that Kusakabe was able to provide effective guidance when Yuji borrowed his body. And this was proven when Yuji was able to use the simple domain. Not only that, Sukuna, who had used the domain expansion on Yuji's body, might have played a role, because basically, Yuji's current body is already accustomed to using high-level techniques, so Yuji actually only needs effective knowledge to unlock all his potential. Some may ask why Yuji is releasing his domain now, and the answer is obvious, because Yuji has just awakened his innate technique. After landing 7 consecutive black flashes, Yuji was in a state where he far exceeded his power potential. So, it's not surprising that after his power was awakened, the expansion of his domain could also be accessed, especially before Yuji had been trained and given the ammunition needed. So far, Yuji's own domain is still unknown by name or form of attack, but from the hand seal and the last scene in this chapter, various clues have been spread by Gege Akutami. First, about the hand seal. When expanding his territory, Yuji uses a hand seal that at first glance looks like Sukuna's. But unlike Sukuna, who refers to the King of Hell, Yuji's hand seal refers to the Buddha Siti Garba. He is the Buddha who is known as the guide of spirits who have no chance to repent in life. In Japan, Siti Garba is also worshipped as the protector of Mitsuko souls. These are the souls of children who died in the womb, died from miscarriages, and died from abortions. And if we look at Yuji's relationship with Sukuna's twin, who died in the womb, as well as Choso, who was an abortion victim, this hand seal also makes sense. Even from this, a picture of Yuji's domain might be revealed. It's just that, as with the other domains, Yuji's domain should also be related to his innate technique that is the same as Sukuna. So most likely, the Yuji domain will also subject its targets to mass dismantle and cleave attacks. Especially when viewed from the previous narrative, where Sukuna continued to discuss that Yuji's dismantle could still be avoided, this domain seemed to be an answer or counter to Sukuna's argument. So in the domain later, Yuji will again attack the soul boundary between Sukuna and Megumi with a rain of slashes. Another theory can also be explored from the last scene in this chapter. We are shown how Sukuna and Yuji are suddenly at a station. From here, the question arises, is this station a form of Yuji's domain, or maybe this describes another place like the afterlife? Because if we observe, this scene is also very similar to when Gojo was killed and met Geto and friends. So if Gojo's afterlife is described as an airport, Sukuna has now been taken to an afterlife in the form of a station. So maybe at the end of this chapter, Sukuna was killed after being hit by Yuji's domain, which unfortunately was not shown. And Yuji as the Buddha Siddhigarbha will guide Sukuna to the realm of the dead, and for that reason he also appeared there. The oddity that this is a different world can also be seen from the appearance of Yuji and Sukuna. Yuji looks very familiar with Sukuna, as if he doesn't hold a grudge against him. While the form that Sukuna and Yuji used was their form before the war in Shinjuku occurred, Yuji only got a scar from Mahito in Shibuya, while Sukuna used his form when he was in Yuji's body. So just as Gojo wore his appearance at school, it was his latest appearance when he was sent to the afterlife. So this scene doesn't seem to happen in the real world. But another theory is that this is still Domain Yuji, not entirely impossible. Moreover, the narrator's comment mentions that the battle will continue to a new region or domain. So this scene could be an introduction to the realization of Yuji's domain attack. So all the oddities, such as the appearance of Yuji and Sukuna, are part of the domain effect. And the closest speculation at this time, maybe Yuji's domain attack will be related to the train. And that's like what was shown in the opening of the Jujutsu Kaisen anime. Whatever the answer will be, what is clear is that this chapter is enough to revive the peak hype in this battle. So let's hope Gege can tie up all of Sukuna and Yuji's conflicts neatly and satisfactorily. And maybe that's the complete discussion, speculation, and theory about Chapter 264. So how about it? Did you enjoy it? Like and subscribe. I'm Nim. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.